In this video, we'll explore the powerful world of Flexbox, a game-changing CSS layout technique that revolutionized web development. Let's dive in and learn how to create flexible layouts using Flexbox. To harness the power of Flexbox, you'll require a container and its child elements in your HTML. In this case, let's create a div with the class FlexContainer as our parent element. Within this parent div, let's create 3 divs with class names box1, box2, and box3. Each containing text labeled 1, 2, and 3. Before delving into the Flex property, let's style both the parent and child boxes. Let's begin by styling the parent container with a background color of tomato. Next, we will proceed to style the child elements within the container. Select the child divs. Now, apply the following styles. Apply the border of the 2-pixel style will be solid. Border color white. Set the background color to Dodger blue. Width of the div will be 100 pixels. Font color will be white. Provide a margin of 5 pixels. A padding of 20 pixels, and increase the size of the font by 30 pixels. To center the numbers in the box, we can use text align, center. Once we have customized the child elements, we can proceed to use the Flex property. Simply go to the parent container and apply the display Flex property to create a flexible layout. By leveraging the display Flex property, we can effortlessly arrange these elements along the main axis, which is horizontal by default. However, if you want a vertical layout, we can easily switch the main axis using the Flex Direction property. To control the orientation of the main axis in the Flexbox, we have 2 options: column for a vertical main axis, or row for a horizontal main axis. In our case, since we want a horizontal main axis, we can either set Flex Direction row explicitly or leave it out as row is the default. Once we determine the direction of the main axis, we can align our items along it using the justifyContent property. By default, items align to the start of the main axis. However, we have several options available. With the Flex End option, the items align at the end of the container. For a centered alignment, use the Center option. The space between option evenly spaces the items between the lines. The space around option adds space before, between, and after the lines of the Flex items. Lastly, the space evenly option adds extra space at both the start and end of the items. These options provide easy ways to control the alignment and spacing of items within a container. Furthermore, to align items along the cross-axis or y-axis, we can utilize the AlignItems property. Let's increase the height of the main parent box to 300 pixels to better grasp the functionality of the AlignItems property. With this property, we can position our items accordingly. Using Start will align the items at the start of the box, while End will align them at the end of the container. Opting for Center will bring the items to the center of the main box. Additionally, the Stretch option will vertically stretch our items to fill the available space. Remember, justifyContent handles main axis alignment, while AlignItems take care of cross-axis alignment. Now let's talk about Flex Direction property. By default, if we don't specify a Flex Direction on the container, it will be set to row. This means the main axis runs horizontally from left to right, while the cross-axis runs vertically from top to bottom. However, we can change this by setting the Flex Direction to column, which makes the main axis vertical instead. Let's make more divs in HTML. Let's update the numbering and change the class names for each item. Let's comment these 2 lines, Flex Direction and AlignItems. When we have multiple Flex items, by default, they try to fit into a single line. As a result, when we add more items, they start to squeeze and overlap. To solve this issue, we can enable item wrapping using the Flex Wrap property. By default, it is set to Now Wrap, but we can change it to Wrap. This allows our items to wrap onto new lines when there's not enough space available, preventing them from overlapping. Let's adjust the height to 700 pixels for a better demonstration. When we set the FlexWrap property to wrap, it introduces a new property called AlignContent. This property comes into play when items are wrapped onto new lines. It allows us to align everything along the cross-axis. Similar to justifyContent, we have various options at our disposal. By using FlexEnd, all items will align at the end of the container. On the other hand, FlexStart aligns all items at the start of the container. Opting for Center will align all items at the center of the container. With space between, some items will align at the start, at the center, and remain at the end of the container. The Space Around option adds more space at the top and the bottom of the container. While Space Evenly, add more spacing. These options offer flexibility in aligning and spacing items along the cross-axis, allowing you to achieve the desired layout for your Flex container. Additionally, we can introduce gaps between items using the gap property. Its value will be 30 pixels. This property inserts spaces between each item. Up until now, all the mentioned Flexbox properties are applied to the container itself. However, there are a few other properties that apply to the direct children of the container or small boxes. Let's keep 3 items and comment out the rest. Let's update the AlignItems property to start. Also, change the height of the parent container to 300 pixels. To apply the next property, let's select item 1. This time, we'll focus on the FlexGrow property. By setting the value to 1, it allows the item to expand horizontally and cover the extra available space. Let's apply this property to the other items. Another property is FlexShrink, which controls the rate at which an item shrinks in comparison to others. By setting it to 0, we can prevent an item from shrinking even if there's limited space. Moving on, let's discuss the FlexBasis property, which enables us to set the initial length of a Flex item. For example, if we set it to 400 pixels, the first Flex item will have an initial length of 400 pixels. Let's change the value to 600 pixels. To make the usage of Flex properties simpler, we have the Shorthand Flex property. It combines FlexGrow, FlexShrink, and FlexBasis into one convenient declaration. For example, when we set it to 300 pixels, it means that the first item is not allowed to grow, not allowed to shrink, and has an initial length of 300 pixels. Alternatively, if we set it to 1, the other 2 values are automatically determined. In this case, item 1 will take up the entire available space. Let's apply to the other 2 items. We have another useful item property called AlignSelf, which allows us to override the alignment value set on the container for individual items. For instance, if we have a line item set to start on the container, but we want the first item to be aligned at the end on the y-axis, we can use the AlignSelf property. By setting it to end, the first item will be placed at the end on the cross-axis, regardless of the container's alignment. To center the first item vertically, use AlignSelf, Center. To change the order of items, we can use the Order property. If you want to move box 1 to the 3rd position, simply set the Order property to 3. Likewise, to move box 2 to the 1st position, assign it an order value of 1, and for box 3 to the 2nd position, set its order value to 2. This way, you can easily rearrange the order of items within the Flex container. Don't forget to like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. Until next time, happy coding!